Sunday Baroque Conversations is made possible by the Friends of Sunday Baroque and is produced at WSHU Public Radio in Fairfield, Connecticut. I'm Suzanne Bona. Thank you for listening. Don't miss an episode of Sunday Baroque Conversations. Subscribe on Apple or wherever you get your podcasts. And please leave us a review. If you want to find out where you can listen to our weekly show, visit our website, sundaybaroque.org, for a station list and our 24/7 stream. Again, that's sundaybaroque.org. Ronkonkoma, New York-born Shane Thor Galligan studied music at the Hart School of Music in Hartford, Connecticut, and at SUNY Purchase, earning a Bachelor of Music in viola and violin performance. That training led to a professional career early on as a teacher and an instrumentalist, which included being principal chair viola with an orchestra that performed at Carnegie Hall. But there was an even bigger audience for her performance in 2016 on the 8th season of RuPaul's Drag Race, using her stage name, Thorgy Thor. Since 2018, she's been combining her passions as a performer in her symphony show Thorgy and the Thorchestra, which blends traditional and modern classical orchestral repertory and contemporary pop songs. Thorgy Thor joins me on Zoom to talk about her career. Welcome. It is so great to meet you.
It's great to be here as well. How funny. So you said that the intro, and it brought me back because I haven't talked about this in forever. Mm-hmm. But early on when I was playing, I was part of the New York Youth Symphony, which was, we were young but very talented kids in Manhattan. And I grew up in Ronkonkoma, but I used to take the LIRR in to go to these rehearsals. And I was principal violist for the Carnegie Hall performance we did. I was very young. We did The Rite of Spring, the Stravinsky.
I know, that's amazing.
It was tough. And the viola part specifically is crazy. It's so fun to play. But anyway, that was nice to... I heard you say that. And I went, let's talk about... I haven't talked about that in a very long time. That was a great time in my life when I was very young and just really having a great time as a really creative, artistic, young, Long Island, funny, talented kid. And I just thank you. That brought me back years. And that was really fun. That was a good time.
So you started, as you say, making music as a child. How old were you? And how did that start? Were you the kid that came from a musical family? Were you the one that was begging to play an instrument, or was it sort of expected for you to take lessons and you just sort of took off?
No, not at all. Actually, I did not come from a very musical family. And I've been asked this question before, but the only musical person really in my family was my Aunt Lisa, who is, she's Broadway. She does a lot of Long Island theater. Now she has children and a whole life on Long Island, but she could sing and she was very, very funny. And I was always just like, oh, that's me. This is my family, but no instrumentalists. And honestly, I didn't really start taking music and instrumentalism very seriously until a little bit later. My parents did not start me when I was 3 years old. I didn't take, the Suzuki method. I was never very structured. I was kind of a kid with a lot of energy. So I was in every sport. My parents were like, whatever this kid can go do outside of the house is good with me. And I was a competitive swimmer, actually. And I was a very competitive swimmer. And it turned out that I had constant bronchitis. I'm allergic to chlorine. So after that, I couldn't swim anymore. And my parents said, let's put you into music. And the rest is history.
Wow. So, and you're, multi-talented viola, violin, and cello.
Yes.
How did viola sort of become the primary instrument?
Well, violin, I played violin when I was, starting out and took it very seriously. But then I went through this huge growth spurt. I'm 6'3" now. But I grew very lengthy. My teacher was smart enough to say, we're going to put you on viola because it's a longer instrument. Mm-hmm. And I really took to that. So I was a great violist, and which helped me out a lot later in conservatory, because once they found out that I played both I was in every chamber ensemble. Even as a freshman, they would put me in as the violist with some of the senior or even some of the doctorate string quartets, because I could keep up with the parts. And that was like a nice pat on my back. It made me feel very desired. You know what I mean? It made me feel
Yeah.
like I'm doing something right. I'm good at this. So
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. So so you go off to this very well-respected conservatory in Hartford and then on to SUNY Purchase as well. And so after you earned your music degree, well, I guess I'd like to back up for a second too and say, like,
sure.
what were your hopes and dreams? When someone goes to prestigious schools like that, and you're having all of this really great feedback for and getting to play. Like, what did you think? What did you sort of play this out in your mind? Like, I really want to do this with my musical training and
No,
skills, or
absolutely not. It's just not never the way my brain worked. And I know this is not a popular thing to say, but I had a conversation and somebody said, "Do you have any regrets?" And I always kind of said, I think my regret was going to college. I think I wasted prime years in my young 20s in a practice room for 7 hours a day
mm,
when I should have been hitting the street meeting people in New York and working. I always
hmm
tell people, even when I get asked by freshmen now
hmm
that are studying at, Manus. I just met somebody that's at Manus and they're a freshman. They're like, I love your Thor orchestra show. You're amazing. Any advice? And I said, don't get too wrapped up in counting on other people to get you work. Get creative. Go
hmm
out there. Start working
hmm
with different musicians, different kinds of music. Don't pigeonhole yourself. Have more fun with it. Get creative. Learn AI recording technologies. Always, broaden what you're doing and just get to meet people and go out there and meet people, especially now because you're so young and learn to get to
hmm
know people because a lot of orchestral people that I met didn't know how to talk to people. They were very quiet.
yeah,
They spoke with their instrument,
right.
and I was did that. So I never stopped talking. But that's always good advice, and yeah. So anyway.
Oh, cool. Well, so I saw an interview you did in The Buzz, and you said something that really struck me, and I want to ask you a little bit more about this. You said there's nothing like being emotionally moved and transported to another place while playing in a large orchestra. It is so
Mm.
powerful. I'd love for you to talk about that experience. What did that feel like? What was the
Oh
power in that?
well, playing as part of an orchestra.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, early on, I realized there's something so special about being part of a section in an
Mm,
orchestra. You're playing first violin, you're part of the first violin section. Your bows have to match, your sounds have to match, your vibrato, your volume, it all has to match because you have to sound like one instrument. It's a completely different skill to play in a symphonic setting as a section player
mm,
versus the violist in a string quartet. That's your part. It's just you singing. So there was such power in such conformity
mhm,
because I'm kind of physical and loud that it was hard to put a tourniquet on my brain to play part of the first violin section. Let's say in Brahms symphonies that are long and lyrical and beautiful. And the first violin section has these huge, sweeping, beautiful melodic lines that never seem to end with Brahms. It keeps going. And there's something so beautiful. It brought me to tears. And I said,
mm.
this is what I want to do with my life. I'm here, I'm
Wow.
part of this. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. So how and when did you become Thorgy Thor?
Oh, well, I started in college. I bit the bug. A lot of drag friends of mine say you're either, pride festivals, you put on costumes for the first time and you get the bug. I was a theater person, so I was Frankenfurter in Rocky Horror Picture Show
Okay.
at, the drama club's performance in college. And I went, oh, this is fun. This is something that I can't ignore. Like, this is very, very fun.
Mhm.
So already then I was like, I have to combine all my loves as an artist, and we're going to find a way to do this eventually.
Uh-huh.
Um, but after that, it was about costuming, and I found that the medium and the discipline of, dressing up and changing your face shape and gender and being an entertainer in that way is demands just as much articulate uh, discipline as playing a string instrument. It's just a
Mhm.
different discipline.
Mhm.
So, I'd split my time between both. And after conservatory, I moved into New York and I would, teach all day. I played for many different freelance orchestras.
Mhm.
And that was my music career, and then that was all day. And then as soon as it hit midnight, I was at the clubs up until 5 o'clock in the morning, and I repeated that for like 10 years. I don't know when I slept. I don't know when I slept, but I was like, I can't give up either one of them. And it was only until I worked doing a lot of shows,
Mm-hmm.
and I would record myself doing Mendelssohn string quartets on violin, one, two, viola, and cello, and I would use that recording
Mm-hmm.
as the background music, telling stories for Thorgy to perform. And in
Oh,
drag clubs, it's Christina Aguilera lip sync numbers with drag queens in clubs. I would do these like 15-minute numbers about storytelling with orchestrated string quartet Mendels, and people were like, "What is happening?" And I'm like, "This is who I am. I'm a little
yeah.
different,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
you're gonna swallow it.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what I'm doing is good. Just pay attention.
Yeah,
Trust
yeah.
me."
It reminds me a little bit of like the classical revolution movement, like where, classical musicians are performing in like clubs and bars and things like that. So,
Sure.
yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. But you've sort of
Yeah.
taken it
And
to that next level.
yeah, and it's about just relentlessly keep doing what you're doing and
Hmm.
believing in it, because
Yeah.
eventually people will catch on, and they did, because I was like, give me a chance, you know what I mean? Like, let's change it up. Let's do something else. Let's add another element of art to this.
Yeah, yeah. So you've really taken it to the next level. You've got the Thorgy and the Thorchestra, and you're blending, again, the traditional and modern orchestral music with pop music. And you also co-created this with a Canadian orchestral conductor, Daniel Bartholomew Poyser. So
Yes, who
tell
I
me
still
about
work
him.
with.
And yeah, tell,
Oh
tell me
yeah.
about how that came about. And it seems like, you're really simpatico. You really have a great, mutual sensitivity and respect. And
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely. So after I announced on RuPaul's Drag Race, like, I want to play, and they had me play, a little violin. And I actually brought my fiddle to the first season of RuPaul's Drag Race on season 8, and I kept trying to tell the producers, like, let me play, but there really wasn't any room for it. They didn't. Again,
They
it
didn't
was
get
like
it.
they didn't get
Yeah.
it, and I'm like, no, I get it. I'm like, this is really cool. Like, trust me. But they didn't get it. So at the reunion, they let me play it a little bit, and I announced to the world on that reunion episode, I want to be in this orchestra. I want to do an orchestra. I want to do, queer artists, but not everyone has to be queer. It's just there's time for a little bit of change, a time for a little bit of alternative, rebranding of orchestral work. Like, why not? Let me into the industry and let me show what I can do. And Daniel called me right away and said, "Listen, has anybody made you an offer?" And I said, "Not really," because after I said that on television, I got like 600 emails from people that were like, "My name is Iris. I live in Iceland. I play the harp. I want to be part of your orchestra." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." So there was like a million emails. And I was like, so I have this orchestra of people from all over the world,
Mhm.
but in order to pay the finances to get everyone together and then charter planes, it became astronomically expensive and unattainable. And he called me and he said, "Listen, I'm the conductor at Symphony Nova Scotia. Why don't you just fly here with a small team, maybe a manager and an assistant and yourself, and you come here with a show that I can help you write, and we'll do it with an already established orchestra,
Mhm.
and that's how we'll afford this." So it was
Mhm.
just nice to bring a show like that there, and we sold out, I don't know, 4,000 seats in like 9 minutes or something. The administrators, I'm not trying to like, blow smoke, but they called me, and the administrators called me and they said, "We have never sold out a show this quickly.
Oh,
Whatever you're doing is something right. Keep doing it."
right.
And that was in 2018, and I've been doing it ever since. And that comment meant a lot to me,
Yeah.
that something I was doing was right. So me and Daniel co-wrote the show, and he goes, "It would work. Let me give you a suggestion. Let's do this." And it's a variety show. So
Hmm.
it's comedy, it's glamour, and it's beautiful symphonic music and experience. And we've written a bunch of different shows since. And we just did our most recent one with the Winnipeg Symphony Orchestra,
Hmm.
which was music and fashion, starting from the very beginning of time and going all the way until Beyonce and Chapel Roan. So it's
Wow.
something for everyone.
Wow. Um, and I know like you've played with a lot of really significant orchestras. And
Yep.
I think in some ways, it looked just sort of the 30,000-foot view, like that does seem to be like a really effective model because, again, they're in place. Those orchestras are really hungry to get butts in seats and to have
Yes.
people come and to get new people to come. So are you finding that that same kind of thing is happening at all the places you go where they're selling 4,000 tickets in 9 minutes?
Not 9 minutes, but we are definitely doing very well. And I
Good.
asked them too, because I'm very business minded. I said, listen, if something's not working, let's switch it up, or time for me to take a break. And every single orchestra, they're like, no, we're like really happy. And I'm like,
Great.
all right, we're doing something right.
Yeah.
And I always talk to the symphonies and we work it out. And I'll say, sometimes, because I go there with Thorgy and Thor Orchestra, and not every player knows who I am, or
Hmm.
they don't watch Drag Race, and they're like, what? And the week before they had Itzhak Perlman or Renee Fleming. So it was like, and then who is this Thorgy character? So it's about the players, and when I walk in, it's very like I have to win you all over
Right.
because you're the best in the world. And I win them over, and then we do the show, and most of the players come up to me afterwards and say, this was the most fun I've ever had playing in the symphony in 10 years that I've been sitting in this seat.
Wow.
And I'm like, that makes me feel really good because tickets are still selling. Something I'm doing is right. And I ask everyone at the beginning of every show, and I say this every single time. I said, how many of you bought a ticket because you watched me on RuPaul's Drag Race and you like drag? And it's half the audience. And I said, all right, how many of you are season ticket holders to the Toronto Symphony Orchestra and you don't even know who I am? And it's the other half. And it's funny. And I said, look to your left and to your right. And this is a concert that you may not have sat next to the same person at any other different kind of show. And this has become my responsibility is
Yeah.
to make drag lovers fall in love with classical music. And you better come back and buy a ticket and put butts in seats and keep the symphony alive, even though I'm not there. And vice versa. I want to see some of the older folks at the drag club at a Monday night at 1 o'clock in the morning supporting your local drag performers. And everyone laughs, and I go, "That's kind of what we're doing here,"
Yeah.
and everyone has a good time.
Yeah, yeah. And it's cross pollination, and that's what has to happen, you know? So I'm so glad that you actually gave that example because that was my next question about, who's in the audience and also, what do you want those audience members, all of them, what do you want them to come away with after one of your shows?
I get asked a lot of political questions from like the climate and the change
Oh,
and because I'm doing something. Do you get protesters and do you get people that are opposition? I get asked this question a lot. I'm
really?
not a politician, and I feel like the perfect form of rebellion is just doing what I love to do and doing it at the best of my ability.
Mm-hmm.
If the show I'm doing is good, you can't deny it, and it doesn't matter what your
Right.
beliefs are. The show is for the whole family, and it's all educational, especially the most recent show that me and Daniel put together, which is music and fashion. So it allows lots of different fashion decades from the beginning of time all the way through the 14, 15, 1800s, 1900s. We go through every decade,
Hmm.
and at the end of it, doesn't matter if you know anything about drag or classical music, you will go away with a wonderful experience of glamour and fashion. And it doesn't matter what gender you are, or I'm not trying to preach any, you know, I'm not trying to change anybody's mind in any political way. I'm trying to make people go away and go, that was really amazing and fun.
Mm-hmm.
And I have gotten a lot of messages from people who had a certain idea about classical music or
Mm-hmm.
a certain idea about drag
Mm-hmm.
and LGBT issues. And they wrote me messages and said, you completely changed my mind. And, I brought my husband, and my husband said to me, because I love drag racing, and I dragged my husband with me. And, I just have to tell you, my husband was like, is this going to be a gay show? Are all the jokes going to go over my head because it's drag? And he left and he was like, I am such a fan of Thorgy Thor. I can't wait to come to the next show. I'm going to tell all my friends. Like, he goes, it was just pure comedy and beautiful
Right.
music. And I got every joke. And I'm like, yes, exactly.
Right.
This show is for everybody, and it's really, really fun. And that's the audience that I hope keeps coming back and putting their butts in the seats. And
Yeah.
we're going to keep churning out new shows and new music and new guests.
Mm. Well, that was my next question. Then, what's next for you? What other projects are you planning? Can you tip your hand a
Well, let's
little bit?
see. I just finished actually a smaller tour of my Thorgy Does Christmas.
Oh.
I tried it this season. It was just me and a beautiful Manhattan School of Music alumni, James Shepard, who plays piano.
Hmm.
And we did a very great little cabaret show. We're going to do it in a much bigger way coming up in the season with a smaller orchestra and hopefully adapt it and write music for full orchestras. But my next one is Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra. We're doing it for the day before Valentine's Day. So it's filled with love. And I'm single and looking if you're interested and you're listening. Ask me out on a date. But it's invited for people who love and dislike Valentine's Day
Right.
to come and celebrate the holiday with us at the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra on February 13th. That's the next one.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I have been speaking on Zoom with Thorgy Thor, violinist, violist, cellist, drag queen, and co-creator of Thorgy and the Thorchestra. Thank you so much. This has been such a great and fun conversation.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me as well. What a pleasure talking to you.